Good afternoon. First of all, I would want to really extend a warm thanks to the QS iGauge team for actually putting up this wonderful panel discussion. So I am not new to QS iGauge. In my previous avatar, I was serving as the Chief Knowledge Officer. And whatever I'm going to reflect, I'm going to talk, is also going to be some certain aspects which I have personally experienced. I've been part of a wonderful team, wonderful journey with Ashwin. I very recently moved to OP Jindal and serving as the Dean of Academic Governance. I'm also overseeing the rating and ranking, which is called the Orbit Office at JGU, which is under me. So I'm going to reflect a lot, when I am going to post certain questions or when I'm going to reflect, how rating and ranking can actually help institutions to move towards excellence. So I think we are also, in fact, having a wonderful panel today. Thank you, Sushmita, for introducing the panel. So you made my job very easy. So if it is okay with the organizers, I can stand here and moderate the session so that they can probably reflect from there. Is that okay? Super. So, it's been, I've been reflecting this, why should institutions move towards rating and ranking? And how does rating and ranking actually help institutions in academic excellence? As I'm also an academician, I cannot stop but to reflect and research. And I thought that I'll bring an interesting perspective to all of us who is part of this wonderful audience, that according to the Higher Education Research Institute and Cooperative Institutional Research Program, American Freshman, there's a very interesting research they've conducted, which is National Norms for 2022, a solid reputation was the most important element affecting prospective judgments when they were shortlisting colleges. So I think there is sufficient research to say that students, when they are looking at universities, when they are looking at institutions, academic reputation becomes a very important factor. Now the question is, how the students will have access to this academic reputation, how the students who are having access to this objectively decide, which institutions that they should go and choose. So my first question to this panel, I would request Professor Kuldeep Raina to reflect on this. Philosophically speaking, is academic excellence dependent on good rating or ranking?
Thank you. Thank you very much, and a very good evening to each one present here. Thanks to QS iGauge, the team, Ashwin, Ravin, as well as Sachin, who have been in touch with me and each one for quite a few years. And indeed, we had a couple of webinars too together, from time to time. The very relevant question that is asked by Professor Ramanujan, and which is a part of the discussion, is it needed or not? I would say yes. There is no second thought. Why can't we be? Because when we look at the globalization, this globalization is not only for trade and transit. I think education plays a very, very significant role in it. The relevance of the education on all, across the continents, becomes a kind of a transport mechanism of knowledge sharing. At the same time, the capabilities that people have on different continents. We have been divided by the boundaries of the nations, but I think education is one which brings us at par with each. Kings are worshipped in their kingdom, but academics is worshipped across the nations. So I would say that this is very good forward-looking step. In this country, when we look at more than 1,000 universities, more than 50,000 degree colleges, and more than 1.5 lakh schools, and much more which is not settled, audited, or put on records, there's a lot of diversity. And to bring this diversity on a platform where we would see that there's a flow of information, knowledge, the capabilities of the people, and the delivery mechanisms that need to be initiated by different stakeholders who are the promoters in the education sector, whether it is by the government, or whether it's by the philanthropy, or it is because of the corporate connect with education. Each one of them need it. The QS was recognized globally But putting I in it, I put it India, gauge. So now QS is gauging India. This is my terminology. I don't know how I gauge will look at it, how Ashwin looks at it. Yes, it is needed. And when we have to compare our education standards, the teaching learning pedagogies at the global level, I would say the parameters that have been defined by you in the first place are more relevant. Yes, it is a dynamic process, the mechanism is dynamic. Maybe after 2 years, there will be a few more matrix elements which will come into play. We have to address them. So in the first place, a good attempt. I congratulate you for initiating such discussions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Professor, I think you set the context in rolling that, whenever we talk about academic excellence, we cannot move away without talking about rating and ranking. It becomes an integral, intertwined discussion which is inseparable. When you talk about excellence, excellence is objectively reflected by rating and ranking, and it does have a role. I think you have set the context in rolling. I wanted to ask a related question to Professor Sasmita Samanta, who is Vice Chancellor of Kalinga Institute, who is here, KITS. Ma'am, whenever we speak about rating, ranking, I just wanted to bring about this very important question, which every university, basically the integral part of the university always talks about the competitive advantage that institutions have. Related to that, I wanted to ask you a question which is of really interest to me, that how should, if ratings and rankings are integral part, how do ratings and rankings actually impact the fostering of academic excellence? We understood that it is important. Now let's also understand in what ways it basically can actually foster the academic excellence. Thank you, ma'am.
As you understand, the academic institutions, particularly they are engaged in educating the generation and creating the new knowledge for future. In those two activities, all the academic institutions in this country are engaged, and each one of the institution, they are having their own vision, own mission, own strategy to accomplish. And today we see each one of the individual in this country or in this world, they are also having one strategy and goal in their own life. They set their own strategy and own goal for themselves. So in that context, I think it becomes very crucial for each one of the student today to select the institution, which institution he or she will be selecting for accomplishing the goal of his own life. And what is the process to achieve that? So that becomes very crucial for a child. And in that context, I would like to say all the rating agencies or ranking agencies or accrediting agencies, with their parameters, you can see that each one of them are having different level of parameters, and weightage is also different. For different parameters, they are giving different weightages. So even if that is there, at least they have tried to bring some harmony into the place. They have tried to bring certain context which are very much required, which is, I can say that, should be the core of any educational institution, that they are trying to bring, and what gives the guidelines for each one of the higher education institution in this globe to focus on. Sometimes we see that the weightages can be different for QS, for Times, for different national, international accrediting agencies, even those who are working. But at least they bring some similarities, as such the educational institution can focus. Second is that while you talked about the competitive advantage, I hope that, yes, each one of the institution or universities today, when I think that I am doing good, I think those agencies are helping me to get one certificate that, yes, I am good and my level is this. And that builds up the confidence for the institution and for the student, those who are getting connected with that. As I said, that objective in both the sides are very clear today, and in each side, the focus is very, I can say that, very strong. So in that context, when the ranking agencies are coming, they are ranking the institution, not only it is giving confidence to the students, but in the institutional level also it's building lots of confidence that where we should focus, how we should focus to maintain our global relevance. Because while we talk about education, while we talk about research, while we talk about holistic development of generations itself, the relevance is a very key word. So for maintaining the universal relevance or global relevance, those ranking processes help the universities a lot. And coming to the academic excellence, I can say that yes, if academic excellence is accomplished with the objective and the activities, focus, efforts put in the university campus. But those ranking agencies, they create momentum. They create momentum inside as such where we should focus, how we should focus, and in which way we should move ahead. Maybe some global perspective, the national perspective they bring into the picture.
Thank you so much, Professor. Let me bring this. It's very important that we also, when we're speaking about rating and ranking, remember President Pranab Mukherjee and his very famous words in 2012 when he went to IIT Kharagpur and made a very interesting remark saying that not a single university is amongst the top 200 universities in the world, which actually created Indian universities to start thinking how they are globally placed and started understanding that it is important that you had to actually go and compete to see where we are. And it is important. The word competitive advantage was beautifully phrased by President in 2012, and I had a great opportunity to work with him. But the idea was coined by President Pranab Mukherjee in making that statement that not even a single university was amongst the top 200 universities of the world way back in 2012, which basically sparked the entire movement of rating and ranking in India. And I think from then onwards, Indian institutions have very actively participated in rating and also ranking globally. The question is also important, what ma'am was deliberating, that to foster academic excellence, you need to actually communicate how impactful your university is. You have to communicate how excellent your institution is based on some measurable parameters. It does become important. Now, two things that happen when an institution goes through rating. One, it enhances credibility and trustworthiness, right? It gives an external agency to look at your internal functions, and therefore it builds in that creditworthiness and trustworthiness, which becomes important for students who are basically the benefactors of this, credibility and also the trustworthiness. So my question to the next speaker or the panelist would be, in this race of rating and ranking, should universities prioritize or focus on domestic or international rating or international ranking? So should institutions have any priorities in actually participating? I would want Mr. Vishal Kurma to respond to this question, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thanks to Ashwin and Sachin and Ravin for organizing this excellent academic conclave. And what a pertinent topic today that we see today, that the relevance of all these ranking, accreditation agencies, rating agencies have become very, very critical, significant importance is there today in what we are doing. And as an institution, we all look forward to such kind of rating agencies or accreditation bodies to certify on the kind of work which is being done by these universities. So, Professor Ramanujan, I think the question is very, very pertinent, that what do we really focus on, whether the domestic ones or the international ones. Now, if we look at it, we basically think that I think we all look for our universities thinking that we are doing a gold standard work. We all think internally that everyone is doing a gold standard work, and there is no room for improvement anywhere unless somebody else comes like Madam Sasmita was talking about somebody should come and show the mirror to you, you know. So I think these kind of agencies do come and show a mirror to you that this is where you stand. And if you compare yourself versus the rest of your peers, this is what your rating is, this is what your ranking is. And that possibly gives you a little bit of an impetus towards, deliberation within your own team members that, oh damn, this is what we have been thinking and we were completely wrong. So that kind of active inertia, what you normally get, is something which you are able to then dispel and move towards things which are more forward-looking and more progressive. So I would not particularly say that it is only international rating agency or accreditation bodies which are more important. I wouldn't say that for sure. We have our own domestic rating agencies and accreditations also which are equally important, and those also reflect the nuances of the Indian higher education space as well, because who knows better than who's living in India, right? So I don't think anybody else can teach us what the education space in India needs today and where we need to make a progress on, right? So the international bodies definitely will give you a benchmarking towards what the global peers are doing, but at the same time, it is equally important for us to understand that how the Indian landscape is moving, how we are progressing towards merging those internationalization related agendas for each of the universities and bring the best academic excellence for our students, for the other stakeholders and everybody.
Thank you. Let me hold on to your thoughts. Now I want to rephrase this question to you. I was part of the QS engagement when we were working very closely with universities and institutions. The rating parameters. We saw as an. I can now understand the reason why this question is actually being put. How should institutions reflect on domestic rating system vis-a-vis an international ranking system? Because what I feel, as you rightly said, is it helps institutions to reflect to its own competitiveness that it is trying to create with other universities, which are very closer to you. But at the same time, right, there are some institutions which also want to just go to the international ranking. So I wanted you to reflect how you are doing at your university and what are the best practices you have adopted. Are you looking at rating, then moving to ranking, is as rating, participating in the rating, is it actually helping you to move towards ranking?
We just started our journey with QS on the ratings, and of course, it is one step towards the direction where we are also looking at to make sure that our comparative edge is always there, and we are able to see ourselves forging ahead amongst the thousands of institutions, higher education institutions which are there in the country. Now, in terms of all the international rankings or ratings, what we are doing at Watson, let me try and share a few things about that. There's a 7-step framework which we follow at Watson. So one is towards the kind of initiatives you take towards anything and everything which is towards academic excellence, and how do we really drive and forge ahead on that parameter. Second one is towards the internationalization, and that's where you try to benchmark yourself against the peers, and there is some bit of a cross-learning which comes across when you are partnering with those foreign universities, global universities, to make sure that our initiatives in terms of curriculum design, our initiatives in terms of the entire pedagogy of our curriculum, how it is delivered to the students, our initiatives towards the kind of collaboration towards research, etc., and the exchange opportunities which we're able to give to our students is taken care of. The third one is towards the research and innovation. I think we all know that the bedrock of innovation is coming from the research, and universities, I think, across the world you will see the innovations basically flourish, and the seeds of that innovation comes from the universities level research which is being done, some of the pioneers, the names which have come from those universities. So of course then the research and innovation becomes the key, and you got to drive towards this initiative, which is not only at the level of the scholars or the faculty level, but also in terms of getting the right participation from our own student community in the research, so that they can also work towards it and contribute towards the research parameters which we are working for. Next one is, the fourth one is towards the employability index. The idea is that the student is joining for either PG or a UG program, and essentially we all understand what they really look at when they look for any university. Employability is a key parameter, and that's not going to go away in India, particularly when you have such kind of 138 crore population in the country and the opportunities are very, very limited. So in that sense, it is the onus of the university and all institutions in our own space to make sure that we do everything possible to bring that employability index right up there. Today morning itself, I was flying in from Hyderabad, and I was sitting next to one of the gentlemen, and he was talking about, he was representing one of the corporates, and I was talking to him, and he was mentioning that, can you all institutions do something where the first 6 months which I really invest in the students to make them employable, to make them start the real work on the ground, can you shorten that for me? That's a big investment. You know, that's a pertinent question. And I think we all have been trying to answer this question, and that's where the employability index comes. So how do we make sure that the industry, feedback, academia is taking well in advance, and we are able to work towards that? Not only that, but also the soft skills which are required, the placement preparation initiatives which are to be done. Can those be done right from the starting of the first year itself, from the inception of the program when you commence the session, whether it's a PG or a UG program, right? So how do we do that? The next one is the fifth one towards environmental sustainability. So if you are such kind of a educational institution, and it is, I think, a moral responsibility for us to really give something back to the society, and the societal benefit has to come in the forefront, right? So those initiatives is something which we keep on striving towards, and Watson's Elevate program is one towards that.
Thanks, Vishal.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have to give time to other panelist members also. So let's keep our responses crisp and short, at least, so that we can ask. I have more questions to ask, so that we could try to get more questions through. The one other important aspect of rating is more and more universities have use ratings as a strategic planning tool. Basically, ratings and institutional reputations are inextricably linked, and data from ratings is increasingly used by many universities for analysis, strategic planning, and sometimes even policy making within the university, right? Where are we and where we want to go, and how certain aspects of rating is going to basically push you think towards a next 2-year, 3-year, 5-year plan, right? So that also is one of the very important aspects of rating. So if I have to ask a related question pertaining to that, what could be other benefits of rating? What could be other benefits which institutions think could be useful for rating? Because there might be people who might have got rated, but they may not know how to use the rating. So it would be beneficial for those universities. So I would ask this question to Dr. Karnal Garg, who could reflect on this question. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Garg, and I'll be sharing my views with all of you. I'm a director of KIET group of institutions in Delhi, NCR, Ghaziabad. And not to be confused with the KIIT Bhubaneswar, because that is the first question I get. Yeah. Thanks, Ashwin, the QS team, and also Professor Ramanujan for taking this discussion very meticulously. I'd like to just mention that, I'm an industrial engineer, and from that perspective, I always say that whatever is measured, that gets done. Now, that is where the relevance of rankings and ratings are extremely, extremely important, because we have seen this concept being very extensively used in the balanced scorecard, which was founded by Kaplan and Norton. Now, from that background, and also if I see the national education policy, in which they talk of the quality education in the first word, and also it says that the global best practices have to be achieved while formulating the policies. Now, from that perspective, I think what we talked of the national standards, international standards, the relevance of the ranking and rating is extremely, extremely important. Now, the recognitions to the institutions are plenty. In addition to getting the grants, I would be very candid in saying being from the private institution. Now, if you have got a good ranking, if you've got a good NRF ranking, you've got a good ARIA ranking, you've got a CIRO certifications, you've got a good QS Word ranking, then definitely the grant allotting agencies have got a different perspective to you. And this is what the practical situation is. Now, this is the greatest benefit, one of the benefits which I feel is there. You get a recognition. Gone are the days when the students and parents, they never bothered about the ratings and rankings. Now, everyone wants to know where do you stand. The parents, the students, they want to know. They want to see how good your institution is, and they also want to see how good your institution in the area which I want to study. So that kind of importance is there. You get the priority. And also, above all, I feel that you get to know where you stand. The continuous improvement parameters, 360-degree feedback parameters, what you get is extremely important. Now, if you see all these ratings, all these analysis, number of them which I said, there are few common things in every one. One is how well you are going for the teaching learning. What are your research credentials? How are you working on that? What is your entrepreneurship efforts? What are your consultancy? What is the outreach? The perception, which is very popular and debatable in NIRF ranking. So all these things probably gives you a direction, and there are so many sub-parameters. If you work on those sub-parameters, make that as a part of your roadmap, I think you need not go here and there. Just a roadmap based on these parameters, probably all the higher education institution can take the institution forward. So I think that is the essence of these ratings and rankings, and that's how they are very, very crucial for all of us. But the caution here would be that just not to focus only on these rankings, on the ratings. There has to be a substantial effort within the institution to go for a legitimate kind of improvement in all these spheres. And there are a number of ways on which we can work on it. That probably can be answered by me later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Colonel Garg. I was talking about how it basically helps as a strategic planning tool. One other ways it's basically helping my university that I represent is also through internationalization. When universities want to reach out for collaborations, a sense of quality, a sense of excellence, which is objectively measured, objectively identifiable, is very useful for universities to collaborate, both in terms of research or even in terms of joint degree programs or even in terms of credit transfer that actually takes place between two universities. So, a rating, a sense of rating, or how institutions are measured actually helps significantly in the improve of internationalization. So that's just another added extended comment to what Mr. Colonel Garg was basically emphasizing on. Let me ask the next question to Dr. Lily Bhushan, who is principal of KS Shroff College. The question to you is, ma'am, yes, we have reached a stage where we understand ratings are important. We know that it is going to become an integral part of the institution. Can you reflect one change that you may want to bring to the existing rating system or mechanism?
Thank you for putting that wonderful question. I think there may be many changes, not one change. But the most important fact is that when we are offering, when the agencies are ranking or rating us, they have to look into the local challenges which an institution might face. A college in Delhi will be different from a college, say, in Haryana or Faridabad or in Himachal. So the local aspects or local parameters or the problems which an institution faces. Because when you are ranking or rating institutions, you need to compare an apple to apple, not an apple to orange. So there, I think the agencies, the rating agencies, should focus on how to measure them on a level playing field. That is one thing I believe that is very important. Otherwise, be it NAC or be it NIRF or be it QS iGauge or be it any other agency which is ranking an institution, what I have experienced and found out that majority of the parameters are quite overlapping, are quite same. But in some agencies, some rating agencies, I believe in QS itself, things were more objective if we compare with NAC to some extent. And some here and there little changes are required. The point goes back to the fact that the local challenges, because QS may rate, keeping in mind the international accreditations, and NAC rates us differently. So some synthesis has to be brought in for institutions, I believe.
Thank you so much. I think I have another 10 minutes. Yeah, okay. So I'll put one question, which probably everybody can reflect quickly. So I represent OP Jindal today, and at OP Jindal we actually have an office which is absolutely dedicated for rating, ranking, and accreditation. It goes beyond the purview of just understanding or applying for rankings, but it also becomes a data center. You know, it becomes the data house, data power. It collects all kinds of information from the university, and it churns very interesting analysis even for the universities internally to look into. So that is what brings me to this question. Are you all advocates of, do you think universities should have a dedicated team that solely focuses and looks after the university's ratings? I would start from Colonel Rana, and we will go from this side. So you could reflect on the same question.
Undoubtedly, the example that we have set at Ramaya University of Applied Sciences is we have a dedicated center, because the data is not only from one source. I think the information that we have to collect is from the stakeholders. That's very, very important. And any data which is not analyzed in the rightest of the domains which we are exploring becomes a big complex situations. So quality has to be across. It is not only that one man ensures the best of the institutions. A student, the parents, like Madam said about the environment in which you are, there has to be a percolation effect from the institution to society and society to institutions. So I strongly recommend, and we follow it, a dedicated data center to analyze and see where we are going to. When we look at the institutional roadmaps, I think the quality, the quantity, and the data that you are looking at becomes a foundation for developing an institutional roadmap. I always believe quality has no finish line. These are the impediments which we have to erase sometimes, but create also, because that is where you reach to. Today you have your highest ranking is platinum, then is diamond. Today is platinum, where he or she is going to go to next. Is platinum the best always? Probably not, because time will change, rating is change, ranking is change. So this dedicated data center is going to be very, very important. I think institutions, my recommendation would be, should look at it holistically. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Raina. I would ask Colonel to reflect.
I try to forward the mic to him to speak to me.
Yeah, undoubtedly, I think all of us would agree on that, because you need a dedicated team, because there are a lot of data and there is a lot of similarity in data. So it's always better a set of team, you know, they get acquainted with what is to be filled up in all the surveys and all the rankings and ratings. I think that will make the job easier, and also it will ensure a quality data to be uploaded on all these portals. I fully second it, sir.
Thank you, Colonel. Vishal?
Yeah, we definitely need to have a separate office. It acts as a nodal point for the data compilation from the various departments of the university. That's one. Second thing also is very important for us is that not only it's a data collection center which acts as a nodal point, but it also, the data has to be, the data-driven insights have to also come from that department, so that you can drive the imperatives for the next operating year. And you can strategize, like you were mentioning some time back, on those data points, that what are the next imperatives for us in the next year. So yes, it is pretty pertinent and important to have a nodal point. Thanks.
Yes, each one of the institutions should have one central data analysis center who should look after the ranking and accreditations, the ratings, because those processes are very structured and institutionalized. So when we have to give the data for a structured system, we have to also establish one structured system inside the organization, while we talk about data, the accreditation cells, the ranking cells, they not only collect the data, but they define the structure, how to collect the data, how to collect the feedbacks, and they teach inside the system that how to make the analysis of those data. Because each one of the system is having their own parameters, own analysis system, own evaluation system. So if we make one structured system inside the organization, as we all discussed that 60–70% similarities are there, because as the educational institution, normally we are aligned with the national policies, state policies, or the universal expectation or global expectation from education, from knowledge, because it's a human prospects or the social prospects or global prospects we all are working on. So in that context, I hope that each one of the institutions should have a centralized system, not only to send the data, but they should very much efficiently understand that how the evaluations are being made and where we should focus more. The internal system should be very robust, like academics, research, or impact, or internationalization, and up to which level. And in that way, I think it's very much essential to have a centralized system which should be well averse or well educated about the evaluation and ranking systems.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
It's bound to be there. It has to be there, because as we teach in economics, division of labor leads to specialization. So here also, from our experience, let me tell you, we are doing a lot of work, teachers are doing a lot of work, but the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. And then when the time comes for making a report, for making presentation, it's utter confusion. So dedicated team, dedicated data center has to be there for the efficient working of the system and portraying yourself properly. You are doing good things, but you are unable to portray, and then there you lose marks. So it has to be there.
Thank you. While I was with QS iGauge as a Chief Knowledge Officer, we did one very interesting study, and I would probably throw certain reflections from that study, and probably we can ponder around, and I will open the questions from the audience. We did a study on mobility report, so we got a chance to reach out to 10,000 plus students, and ask them what are the factors that they would considering while choosing institutions outside India and institutions within India. And very interestingly, there were very interesting factors. We measured them on safety, employability, reputation, university life, infrastructure, good weather, social life, public transport, and nightlife. This was a very interesting study which we did internally, because we had access to nearly 20,000 or 30,000 students, and we sent out a questionnaire and we collected information. So when students were moving from India outside India, there were three very important factors which were ranked in this order. Safety, employability, and reputation was of utmost important while they were choosing institutions outside India. For all that we know, we thought these three are also important when you have to choose institutions within India, right? But the survey didn't say that. The survey said, rank 1, good weather. Rank 2, safety. Okay, we can live with that. Rank 3, social life. Right? It was absolutely a striking thing for all of us to say what and why. That we all know academic reputation, employability is the first question every student asks when he or she is going to take up the admission. But when in a survey, it is looking like, we were actually getting into a huddle and saying, what is this? Where, why? Maybe it was during the COVID situation, since we did this report during the COVID, probably safety, good social life, good weather could have become a factor, changing factor. But it also tells us what parents are wanting from the institutions. The students may not necessarily want the same, or they may not be looking at those factors as well. But this is a very interesting study, and I would request all of you to go actually read this very detailed study which we conducted as part of the QS iGauge called the Mobility Report 2020. But My last question, I would not want to ask any more questions, but I would request if the audience have any questions, and then I'll ask one last question to the panel. Yes, please, Professor Khosla. Yeah, there. You can identify whom you want to ask the question, or anybody can reflect it. No problem.
You know, when you started your discussion, Ramanujan, you spoke about our former president, where he said, non-Indian institution was in the top 200. So in a QS event in Goa when COVID had not happened, this was 3 years back, there was a very interesting discussion. And we were speaking about how do you build great universities. I'm always a believer that we live in a world of disruption. And I asked this question to so-called luminary vice chancellor, who runs a very large university sponsored by a very large corporate, without naming him. And I asked him, can you build a top 200 university without huge amount of capital? Because you need huge amount of capital to compete in the normal world. And he looked into my eyes and laughed and said, you're smoking dope, Atul, you can't. So my question to you is, do you believe you can build a great university, a top 200 university, without capital, especially in a world which is asset light? Over to you guys.
Who wants to respond?
Atul, money makes the mere go. I was taught when I was a school student. I think it is true even today. But what I look at QS iGauge is they have added one parameter, this is happiness. I think in addition to money investment, there has to be the creativity, which certainly comes with investment, but at the same time, the intellectual capital also plays a very, very important role. I would say we have to work on both the sides. Looking at the diversity of our society, looking at the investment that the government can afford, probably high-end research sometimes becomes very, very difficult. But Raman did not do the great experiment of Raman effect using a Raman spectroscope of around 1 crore rupee, which I buy today. It was a simple idea. I think there is no dearth of ideas in this country. We can make these great institutions by thought process, the intellectual capability. I think India has worth we can do. Thank you very much.
Anybody else want to respond to that question? Yes, ma'am.
Here I would like to say that I belong to one institution which was started institutions together. One is KIIT, another one is KISS. One is for the general students, general category students, and where he focused for quality education. Second was KISS, Kalinga Institute of Social Sciences, where he focused to provide the free education for the indigenous children. So both the institutions started only with 5,000 rupees, and after 30 years, today of course KIIT is one of the prominent institutions in the globe. In many international ranking may not be in QS in times, we are among top 500 in computer science and engineering. And KISS, it's completely free. Of course, KIIT supports KISS, the tribal institution, and that is only one tribal university in the globe where only tribal students study. Only one tribal institution, while I say. And in KIIT also, we are having a simple calculation. When the number of students in KIIT grows, then we have to increase the number of students in KISS. So in KIIT also today we are having 32,000 students. In KISS also 32,000 indigenous students, those who get the free education. And our second level of plan is that KIIT will be growing as the institution of excellence in the same place. We will not be having multiple campuses anywhere else. And KISS will be having campuses in different indigenous places and slum areas. In Delhi also one school runs, sponsored by government of Delhi. But the KISS in Bhubaneswar is totally sponsored by KIIT and sometimes supported some initiatives, research, the social activities are supported by some of the funding agencies of government or any other agencies, but it's very nominal. It's mostly supported by KET. And by this time, I think we have developed lots of social capital and intellectual capital. If we see our research outcome, if we see our innovations outcome, we are #1 in the country in private sector in last 2 years by Ministry of Education. With IIT Madras in public sector in innovation, it's #1 in the country in ARIA ranking, and KIIT is also in #1 in the country in private sector. And coming to academics, I can say that maybe we are one of the sought after destination for engineering, law, medicine, those education. We have done a lot in professional education. We have focused on social science education in last couple of years. Maybe we are doing a little bit good. But I think that whenever the will is there, we can build up big institutions without any capital. We had some discussion with the ministry also very recently, and where we are discussing that the institutions developed by the corporate people and the institution developed by a person, the social worker, how we can make the similarities and where the similarities come. If anyone is having 2,000 crores, if anyone is thinking that they can establish an institution of eminence or institution of within top 100 in the world in 5 years, 10 years, I think, which can be next to impossible. But with sincere effort, dedication, and combined effort and the dedication of particularly the faculty, students, and staff together, only it can be built. Perhaps KIT and KIS stands today with that. Thank you.
Yeah, I just, if I can respond to you, we have, what the question that you asked is so relevant. Do you need capital to build world-class universities? And when institutions don't have that capital, can you actually excel? It's both are directly correlated questions. If you look at the sense of history, right, the Presidency College of Chennai really brings a lot of noise here. How many of us know that the Presidency College in Chennai produced 2 Nobel laureates, that is basically C.V. Raman and Subramaniam Chandrasekhar, and 2 Bharat Ratna awardees, C. Rajagopalachari and in fact C. Subramaniam, but that university is, you can't even walk into that university, college today. It's a small Presidency College, but look at the legacy that it actually created. As you rightly said, it may not have had the capital to be pushed, because not many universities today actually say that their alumni were Nobel laureates. Not many institutions, but this is a small college in Chennai which had 2 Nobel laureates coming out of that college, C.V. Raman and Chandrasekhar. So the question is somewhere, yes, the capital factor does really become important. The funding factor does become important for institutions to excel. But at the same time, I think India has also been the heritage. We should actually call ourselves as the Davos of education, because everything started here. India was the helm where internationalization on education was actually taking place, in terms of Takshashila. So we should not forget our heritage. At the same time, we also understand and also see how innovative capital could be raised to build world-class, institutions. That's a different subject matter, different topic, but I'll be very happy to discuss this. I think we have come to the end of the panel discussion. Again, a round of applause to all the panelists. Thank you so much, for taking your time and being here and reflecting. Again, I wanted to thank Ashwin for having me here, and Sachin and the entire QS iGage team. I think it is really important that we engage the importance of, rating, ranking, and how it would basically help institutions to build academic excellence. And we are definitely walking in that path, and I hope many universities walk with us in that journey. Thank you so much.
We thank the moderator.